All right, and with us right now, we've got Barry Schwartz. Barry, you are the founder of Radical Results, and you're on the web at barryschwartz.com. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're so welcome, Josh.
So, Barry, we want to talk about sales. Sales is without sales, ain't nothing getting done in business. Is that right?
That is certainly correct.
How did you find yourself in this position? Did you go to school? You always knew you were going to be a sales professional, or how did this come about?
Yes, my superhero origin story is that I used to be a lawyer, absolutely hated it. And I left, I got involved with one of the top consulting firms in the world. I became their youngest partner in 60 years. And then after being there for about 3 years, I left and started my own shop about 4.5 years ago now. Never looked back. And just been rocking and rolling.
So what led you to believe that you could provide sales in a way that maybe was not being done very effectively? Did you start off just working primarily with law firms, or did you pinpoint any particular niche?
My first clients were small businesses with under 15 employees. And after about 2 years working with them, I started working with some Fortune 500s like Pepsi, Uber, WeWork, and so on. And then just been taking off since, from there. I mean, nowadays I'll work primarily with, my favorite clients are small business owners with under 30 employees because you can really create a tremendous impact. When you're working with an organization with, 18,000 people, you're not really going to make too much impact. So those are my typical clients. And, I got involved with sales because I saw that I created something called the spiritually shameless sales model, or sometimes I just call it the shameless sales model. It has 4 pillars, which I'm sure we'll get into. And I just saw so much confusion around sales. Sales can be the funnest and most meaningful part of your day when done right.
I see this, and I'm sure you see this a lot. I mean, this is extremely common, is that most people get into business, they're visionary, they've got an idea, they can solve a problem, and they're good at solving that problem, or they're really great at providing that technical solution or those professional services. But sales and marketing is just not something we're not necessarily being taught this in school. It's certainly not part of, when you got your law degree, you certainly, I don't know that you probably didn't have any classes on either sales or marketing in law school. Am I right?
Definitely not.
So most people just kind of have to pick this up. And I think most of us, start off being very uncomfortable with the idea of sales because we're afraid of rejection. We're afraid that, people are going to think that we're just trying to get sales. That was my biggest thing in the early days, and that I wasn't valuing them for some reason. But what do you say, or what would you imagine would be some of the first steps to say, okay, great, you got a company. Okay, you're doing some advertising, whatever, but at the end of the day, you still need to do sales. And so where's a great place to start? Is that something where a founder just says, I'm never going to learn about this stuff. I'm just going to hire a sales professional and just trust that they know what to do?
I mean, a founder can try that and God bless them if that works. But generally, every founder is a salesperson and every business owner is a salesperson. No one's going to care about your baby like you do. We all know that. And the buck stops with you. Now, there's a lot of confusion around sales. I mean, look, modern sales arose a short 90 years ago, basically, with the rise of marketing as well in the 20s and 30s. And the market has changed so much. The average consumer nowadays is so jaded and so skeptical of all the bullshit promises that corporations and companies have made to them, that if you're trying to sell people with, so would you like to speak Tuesday or Wednesday? And you know what I mean? When you haven't even asked them if they want to speak again.
Right.
You're bringing a knife to a gunfight. It just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. I've studied and led consumer behavior for 13 years now as a consumer expert. And, I can tell you, just like what you said, is that consumers have never been more savvy to, or more able to dissect, wait a minute, why did you just ask me A or B? I didn't even agree to A or B yet. Like most, I think in the olden days, 5-10 years ago, I think you could still get away with that stuff a little bit, and people would just kind of follow along because we saw the authority of the person who was at the furniture store or selling the SaaS software, well, maybe not SaaS at that time, but, was selling whatever solution it was at the time. And so we respected that they had a certain level of authority. Now today, where consumers just don't make decisions, most consumers don't make decisions until they've done their due diligence, right? And that's just a part of how we buy today is we say, well, I would be a fool if I didn't at least look and check and see some reviews before I give you all my money. I mean, it's just, or we look for coupons, or we want to find out what other users and customers have to say. We want to find the complaints and see what did people complain about? What's the industry saying about them? What's the media saying about them? A really, really great book on this, Mark Schaefer, Marketing Rebellion, I think spells it out brilliantly. It came out last year, just in terms of what large companies know about consumer behavior today. And so if you're on either the front line or managing a sales team, sounds like, Barry, this is something you ought to be pretty savvy about.
Yeah, and don't forget that a short 20 years ago, if you came to me and said, Barry, hey, I'm Josh Elledge and here's my thing and let's do business, I couldn't look up your competitors easily. I couldn't find information about you easily. So I didn't have many options, number one. And number two, there wasn't a lot of transparency. The internet changed all of that. Yeah. I could look you up on social media. I could see the way you're interacting with people on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, if you're there. And people do that. I mean, it's like just before I got on with you, I got an email from this company that, I'm looking to buy a certain software for some of my marketing funnels or whatever. And, they want to charge me $20,000, which is fine if it can do what they actually say it can do, which I'm not sure about. And, I just got an email like, hey, are you going to purchase or whatever? And I was like, well, I don't know yet if you can really help me.
Right.
They're like, well, what more do you need? Haven't you seen all our testimonials? And I'm like, dude, like, you should take my course. You need help. Like, of course I seen your testimonials. So what? I want to see the 1-star reviews. I want to know how you guys operate when things aren't working well. Yeah. So let's, Barry, let's take a look then at, you have your 4 pillars to success. And a good acronym to remember this is EARS, EARS. So we'll use that as our template. And if you could start us off with number 1, which is extraordinary communications. Sure. So I created this model to do one thing and one thing only, which is to have your prospects chase you. It's very important for your prospects to start chasing you instead of you chasing your prospects. We don't want to be there. So these 4 things are 4 practices. They're 4 disciplines that if you practice them consistently, your prospects will chase you. And the first one is extraordinary communication. And the reason for that is because if you're communicating in an ordinary fashion nowadays, you're just not even trying. So if you're sending an email with a subject title that's like, regarding project, whatever, don't send it. You know what I mean? Like people they're behind on emails. They're behind on all their work stuff. They are getting Slacks and Instagrams and Facebooks. Their daughter is sick. They didn't sleep well last night. They've been hit up 4 times today already. You're number 5. You know what I mean? So extraordinary communication means you need to start to ask yourself, when is the last time they heard someone speak to them this way? So every time you're going to get on a call or walk into a meeting or send an email, you need to ask yourself, what I'm about to communicate, when is the last time they heard someone speak to them this way? And if the answer is probably last week, it's not good enough. So just to give you an example, I was working with one of my clients who was trying to land a contract with Disney worth about $1 million. There were like 6 other competitors vying for that contract. And so I asked them to send me the final email proposal they were going to send. And, again, it was that classic regarding project X. Yeah. And I said, hell no. You might as well put in the subject line, we don't want to win this contract for the same price. And I said, tell me something about the decision maker whose name was, let's say, Lisa. And they're like, well, we know she loves Game of Thrones because she referenced it in the meeting. Because I said, I want something personal. Tell me something personal. I said, great. Tell me more. Oh, she's a redhead. No, I'm a redhead. She's a redhead. Great. Okay. Who's an interesting character from Game of Thrones who has red hair? Oh, Sansa. Okay, good. That's your subject title. To our favorite Sansa. Now that's just a subject title before I shredded their whole email. They got that contract. So the first thing we need to do is grab attention. If you don't have attention, you have nothing. You can't get to work on anything. And so extraordinary communication is really, really critical.
Yeah. Well, I think that, if Lisa is looking at 5 or 6 emails that have come in, and, the other ones are all regarding blah, blah, blah. And, it just stands out. And it's personal. It really communicates that you actually care, and that I think most importantly is that you're human. Like, we're all human. We're all consumers. We're all people. We may be decision makers, but, it's like when dealing with, as a consumer expert, one thing I'll commonly do in when you have to call customer service, never, ever, ever refer to the person on the other phone as you guys or your company. It's as soon as you do that, it's like, well, you've just drawn the line in the sand. And it's us against you, it's me against you. And so instead, you want to, bring them to your side of the table. And you say, listen, if AT&T did this to you, like, what would you do? Like, what would you ask for? Like, how would you solve this problem? And now you have an advocate instead of an adversary. So I see some parallels there.
Yeah.
So number 2, Barry, is shameless advocacy. And by the way, I think you illustrated extraordinary communications very, very well. And so just recap on that. So making it personal is obviously extreme. Making it human. And then would you say those are probably 2 of the biggest elements to that?
I would say it can be, but the most important question to ask is there any way they're not going to open this email? Is there any way they're not going to perk up when I say this in the meeting? Because you want to communicate in a way they haven't been spoken to in many, many, many moons. Like, that is just so critical. And it's not about being provocative for the sake of being provocative. Mm-hmm. You want to do it in a way that sits well with them. And, to our favorite Sansa is great. Like, it's funny. It's interesting. It tells her, oh, we're really paying attention. Because she just casually mentioned Game of Thrones in the middle of an hour-long meeting, right? It hits all these marks. And so that's really where you want to get to with extraordinary communication.
Number 2 is shameless advocacy. I see you follow your own advice because your headline on your website is, I help small biz owners get 50% more done, be better with their people, and increase sales 30%. Those are some bold claims, my friend.
They are bold claims.
And so why does this work?
So, one of the big pain points around sales is people don't want to be pushy. Now, some people get off on being pushy. You know what I mean? So, if you take a trip down Wall Street, on some streets over there, you'll find people who love that. But most people don't want to be pushy. And so there comes a point in the conversation where it's like, we're playing the politeness. I call it the politeness game. So like, I'm going to, like when you say, oh, this is really, oh, Barry, this is super intriguing. Oh yeah, your sales system sounds really cool. Why don't you send us over a proposal and we'll take a look at it. And so like, I'm going to, which of course is a polite way of saying no, thank you. so I'm going to pretend like you're really interested, and you're going to pretend like you're interested, or we're both going to pretend like we don't know that what's really happening underneath the surface of this conversation is nothing's going to happen. And it just doesn't work. So shameless advocacy is about really owning the value that you can do. If this person, this is important, if this person is the right fit for you and you do your best work with them, what kind of impact can you create over there? So those are two things. If this person is an ideal client for you and you do your best work, what is possible? So for example, I was just 2 weeks ago in LA, a well-known, management of talent in Hollywood company brought me in to troubleshoot some of their artists that aren't popping off the way they want to. And, I started looking at their communications around some of these artists, and I saw like the email they're sending is like to some of the big studios is like, and labels is like, hey, something like, hey, I thought you might love to check out this music from one of our artists. We think it's killer, link, whatever. And I was like, what's really the value? So here's this executive sitting at some, hot label, gets this email. What value do you represent to his life? Like it's all about you, right? So it's like, oh, please pay attention to us. Please take a look at us. Please help us. He doesn't give a shit about you. What can you do for him? Or what can you do for her? And I said, isn't it true that if this artist really pops, it would change the very trajectory of this person's career? If they were responsible for bringing in an artist who hit the top 40, it would change the very trajectory of their career. Their bonus that year would be insane. You're not owning the value you represent potentially to this person. And so we changed it to, hey, Tom, hey, Lisa, I'd love to help change the trajectory of your career and turn you into a rock star. I want this year to be the fattest bonus you ever get. Warning, this artist's music is addictive. You may find yourself listening to it on repeat. Here it is. So, their response rates blew up after that. They've been emailing me like last 2 weeks. Because people, it accomplishes a few things. One, it tells people, you're not shy about owning what you're doing. You're a real professional. Like you're not hedging your bets. You're not, ooh, I can't say certain things. Like if that's what you do, own it. And it's really about being shameless about it, which this is why I like to say it's really a spiritual model, a lot of this, because it's really about owning how valuable you are, which is hard for people because we have a lot of shit with ourselves. And we often feel like a fraud. We often feel like we're not that valuable, frankly. And this is spiritual work. It's spiritual work to deal with your shit, own the value you represent, and communicate from that place. And that's shameless advocacy.
Yeah. So
now you got to deliver. You got to deliver, but you also need to communicate.
And to be clear, we're talking about the advocacy in the outcome that we want to bring the other person. So I am their advocate. I'm not just advocating for my own results generically. I'm like, no, I want to bring this. I am able to bring this change in you.
Yeah, exactly. So it's shameless advocacy of the value that you represent to this person, to their life.
Right.
I know, for example, when I'm sitting with a small business owner, I could change this person's life, their very life, because if their business grows by 30%, their life is changing. Both the quality of their life, the surface of their life, everything. I'm going to own that. Now, I can't help everybody. And I am very selective about who I work with, fine. But at least when I'm communicating what I can do for them, I'm going to make it all about them. And I'm going to be shameless about the value I can bring to them, if that's what I do.
How do you balance that versus the, being careful not to over promise, or I guess you just need to know what your capabilities are. Would you agree that that's it?
I would say you need to know what your capabilities are, number two. And I also say over promise and over deliver. Do both. Like one of the things that, now now don't overpromise and don't deliver. Okay. But overpromise and overdeliver means there's two things happening here. One is that we're being shameless and getting our shit out of the way so we could own how valuable we are, number one, and put all the insecurities and fears and doubts we have on the side and look at what have we actually done for people when they were our best client and we were doing our best work. What's actually possible here? Yeah. I'm sure, Josh, you know that you've had clients that were ideal fits for you. You did your best to work with them and you changed their life.
Yeah, right.
So like, that's just the fact of the matter.
So when we move on then to number 3, which is radical honesty.
My favorite.
So tell me more, because I honestly, like, I get insecure when I read that, and I thought, oh my gosh, Barry, are you about to say something really that's gonna leave me in tears or something? Like when you're radically honest, help me understand this.
Yeah, so radical honesty is just about continuously pointing to the elephant in the conversation. That's all. So if someone says, that sounds super intriguing, send me over a proposal, I'm going to say something like, I have no problem sending you a proposal, Josh, but I know that very often people are being polite when they say that and are really not all that interested. And that's totally fine if that's you. Yeah. Is that what's going on here?
I love that.
Okay.
That saves a lot of time.
What do you say?
That's going to save a lot of time.
Exactly. I don't want to play the polite game. You don't want to play. What are we doing here? Yeah. Or if someone says, let's say I've been speaking to a potential client or whatever for some time, and they're like, well, can you send me testimonials or whatever? I would say, I'm happy to send you testimonials. I have like 50 testimonials on my website and LinkedIn. You could go take a look at them. I'm happy to send them to you. But is that really what's going to help you make a decision here? Really? That's really what's going to help you give the clarity to know whether this is a worthy investment or not? I'd rather take a look with you at what would help you make that decision.
Right.
So radical honesty is about having the courage to elevate a polite sales conversation to an authentic, real conversation between two human beings who are not putting up a front, who are not playing the polite game, and who are just actually authentically saying what they're actually thinking.
Yeah, I think that's being honest with one's own purpose as well, and say, listen, I have a purpose here, and that purpose is to deliver that the outcome that I know that I'm capable of. But if I got lost in my thoughts here, but if we're staying true to that, then we really don't have time to play any other games. And so it almost evokes a sense of urgency to say, that, I have this power to do this. And so, I like where you kind of, you're searching for clarity on what they really, really, really want, because that's going to help facilitate the best outcome that you could provide.
Yeah. And also, I would say do it from love. Do it with love. Like, people are not used to radical honesty. And so it's important to be gentle with it, and people are their own worst enemy. Like no one's, it's not personal. Just, everyone's just playing that game. Like, I don't know, something like a month ago, I just got on the phone with a VP at Amex, whatever. And like, he was like, after a few minutes, it became clear, like, he's like, oh, we're not actually looking for a sales trainer. We're looking for a system to generate more leads. And, now I happen to know that one of the things that happens with companies when I work with them is their lead generation starts to explode, although my system is not directly related to lead generation. But you see, there's a certain framing now in the conversation, because once he says that, anything I say is going to be heard as what? Like if you say, oh, we're not looking for that, and then I say, oh no, my thing also does that. Oh, what is that heard as? Yeah. It's heard as bullshit.
Yeah.
So a lot of times radical honesty is helpful to take away a certain framing so that you could communicate in a way that they could actually hear. So, you know what I said to him, look, man, I know that what I'm about to say can be heard in this and this way, and that's not how I mean it. Mm-hmm. I actually mean it that here's the results people have. And I'm just telling you what's true. Like, I'm not saying I'd even agree to work with you. Like, there's so many, we were so early in the conversation, it wasn't even about that, but it was like, you want to use radical honesty sometimes to take away a certain filter people have so that they can actually hear what you're saying.
I love this. And then finally, number 4, and oh man, we are overdue. Sorry. Radical service. Barry, I think you're going to listen, maybe just touch on that real briefly, and then let's get right into where people can, when they can connect with you and how they can learn more about the pillars.
Let's leave that as a teaser.
Okay. All right.
Radical service is the teaser.
There we go. And so Barry, your website is barryschwartz.com, BERRY.
Barry like a strawberry.
There we go. And SCHWARTZ.com. You're a speaker, you're a consultant, and looks like you got a podcast. And that, so the name of your podcast is Radical Results.
No, not
how to get radical results in your small business.
I changed the name of the podcast a while ago. It's called the Shameless Sales Game now.
Great. And you also have the Sales Academy as well. And what happens in the Sales Academy?
Sales Academy is for people who can't afford my premium rates or who don't even want that. It's a online academy. I run it 4 times a year. It's quite affordable. It's $1,000 per person. It's 12 weeks of some of the best on-hand sales training that is out there.
Fantastic. And again, that's all at barryschwartz.com. Barry, thank you so much for joining us.
You're so welcome, Josh. Have a beautiful day, man.